What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, where for today's video we may just be about to have one of the biggest discussions of the year so far, as thanks to the incredible JT Prime 17 we know pretty much what to expect heading into 2026 for both Transformers Age of the Primes and Transformers Studio Series. So firstly, let's delve into some of the deluxes for Age of the Primes. The first one we can expect would be Quintus Prime, the scientist of the 13, and definitely a rather ambitious design to approach at the deluxe price point. To be completely honest, all of the primes that I've checked out so far have been incredibly solid, so I definitely do have faith in what they're about to cook up. The next deluxe class would be a G1 Sure Shot. Now this guy was originally supposed to be released, I believe, in the final wave of Legacy United. For whatever reason they decided to scrap it, but he is now back with a bang. The third deluxe class will be a G1 Blast Off. Now this will be the second component to be so far released to form Bruticus, and if Vortex, which was recently revealed, is anything to go by, this combiner is about to be nuts. Next up is a Beast Wars Quick Strike. Now to be completely honest, I did not expect this at all to be a part of the second year of Age of the Primes, and I do wonder if this guy will be a complete brand new mold, or if instead this will be a heavy retool of Scorponok. I'm kinda thinking that it will be a retool, but I'd love to know what you guys would like to see down below. Now as for this next listing, it's kind of open to interpretation. This is a deluxe class smokescreen. Now the listing is kind of vague, as it doesn't offer much in terms of what universe it's from. Honestly, I wouldn't expect it to be G1 based, as the Earthrise version is still pretty decent, and we did very recently see an 86 movie Prowl using that exact same mold. But who knows, and if it's not a G1 based design, then what universe would you like to see this smokescreen from? Personally, I'm hoping that it would be Transformers Prime based, because I'm a huge fan of that series, and I thought that smokescreen in that show was actually pretty awesome. Now as for the next listing, this will be a G1 Power Glide. Now this one is definitely exciting. It's been years since the previous Combiner Wars version, which, let's all face it, stacked up against some of the more recent mini-bots, doesn't really look all that great, so it will be really cool to see him kind of done to the standard of those, and I would imagine that just in general it's going to be a really solid figure. The next listing is also a mini-bot, that being Swerve. Now I do believe the last time we saw this character released was during the Thrilling 30s toy line, which is now over 11 years old, which is crazy, so his update was definitely well overdue. And as for the next listing, this is one which I personally am super excited for, an Animated Universe Deluxe Class Ratchet. I have loved what Hasbro have been doing so far with some of the updated animated characters. I am a little surprised not to see him released as a Voyager, especially as the original Deluxe included so many accessories, but as I mentioned, if the likes of Optimus Prime or Bumblebee are anything to go by, this guy is still going to be super solid. And then rounding things off for the Deluxes that we so far know about, this one, to be completely honest guys, is kind of a letdown. This will be a Prime Universe Cliff Jumper. Now this is super crafty on the part of Hasbro if this is just exactly the same version that was recently released in that multi-pack, as myself and many of you guys only purchased that for the Cliff Jumper. It was by far the biggest highlight out of that set, and if they're about to release it individually, that is gonna simply suck ass. Now we shift gears slightly by delving into the Voyager class listings. So up first would be Alchemist Prime, the Trickster of the 13. This one too is going to be incredibly interesting, especially depending on what design they do decide to take inspiration from. As for the next listing, this is one which I in particular am incredibly excited for. This is G1 Brawl, the third component to form Bruticus. Now this guy is more than likely a Voyager due to him packing some of the internal ratchets for the ankle joint, although I'm thinking, considering that he is a Voyager, maybe this combiner could potentially be a hybrid between what we've seen from both Superion and Devastator. Maybe just the arms will be additional armor that will attach onto a skeleton, whereas Brawl might actually become the whole lower leg, or it could just be because they wanted to make him bigger. I guess only time will tell. Now as for the next listing, this one definitely took me by surprise. This is an animated Wreck-Gar. Now I really wasn't expecting Hasbro to approach this character just yet, especially as they've barely touched base with the Decepticons. I'm thinking though that maybe this could be a retool of the Legacy Evolution Trashmaster, especially when it comes down to that vehicle mode. I could really see that working. Now as for the next listing, they are quickly back with another banger, as this is an Armada Universe Sideways. The second I hear Armada, I just know that they are absolutely gonna cook. Although this guy will be Voyager priced, surely that means that they're gonna include both Crosswise and Rook. Again, I guess only time will tell, but I'm thinking that's gonna be the case, as otherwise they could just release this character as a deluxe class. And then rounding things off finally for the Voyagers is Nexus Prime, the first combiner. Now again, I'm incredibly surprised to see this released as a Voyager, as he's supposed to be formed out of multiple individual components. Unless this just forms the torso and the other members will be released separately, this one is definitely going to be interesting to say the least. Now let's turn it up a notch by delving into the leader class listings, and we are starting things off big with Big Convoy, based on the Beast Wars Neo universe. Now this one was kind of a given, as they did originally tease him on the box art of the Commander class Magmatron, which by the way guys was a fantastic figure. This one again I'm incredibly excited for, because he will transform into a full-blown mammoth, and unfortunately the Encore version is now near impossible to find at a decent price, so really cannot wait to pair this guy against the Emperor of Destruction. As for the next leader class to accompany Big Convoy, this one is a little lackluster in comparison. This will be a universe version of Razor Claw. Now this will more than likely be a straight up repaint of Tigerhawk, with possibly a brand new faceplate for the Beast mode. To be completely honest guys, I'm not too excited for this one, but Tigerhawk was definitely a very solid leader, so if they do knock it out of the park with the colour scheme, this guy definitely has the potential to maybe look even better. Then finally, rounding things off completely for Age of the Primes, JT Prime 17 also dropped the listing for the Commander class of next year, and really to nobody's surprise, this will be a G1 Onslaught. So the leader of the Combaticons and the torso of Bruticus. To tell the truth, this design in general just kind of lends itself to that Commander class price point. I imagine that they are going to make the most out of that vehicle mode and find some way to transform that into a battle station, much like we have recently seen from Silverbolt. But to tell the truth, I'm just excited to see the robot mode of Onslaught. I really did think the Combiner Wars version unfortunately was kind of lacking, so this is a much needed update, and right now it really is the battle of the combiners. Out of the three that have so far been revealed, which is the one do you guys think is going to come out on top and will be the best? Will it be the 86 movie Devastator, Age of the Prime Superion, or Bruticus? Now, let's change gears entirely by shifting over to Transformers Studio Series. So firstly, let's now delve into the Deluxe class listings. First up with a Devastation Bumblebee. Now this one definitely has the potential to really hack me off. I'm almost certain that they are going to reissue the 86 movie Bumblebee, only this time with proper cel-shaded windows. Even though it's been mentioned multiple times by the design team how first time round it wasn't possible due to how Bumblebee was manufactured. The next Deluxe will then be Transformers 1 Orion Pax. Definitely incredibly interesting. Now this will more than likely be a retool of Optimus Prime, potentially with a new head, chest plate and smokestacks, to resemble how he kind of appeared midway through the movie once he is gifted the transformation cog by Alpha Trion. Now we turn to a listing which, to tell the truth, almost caused me to have an accident: the Transformers 5 The Last Night Barricade. One of the only new Bayformers to be released so far for next year, and this is a much needed update. His original figure, unfortunately, to put it blunt, was crap, and it will be really cool if this guy is the start of Hasbro finally giving us a good chunk of the Decepticons from that film. We still desperately need Onslaught and Dreadbot, as unfortunately they were never released during the original toy line, and Onslaught, without a doubt, despite being incredibly easily killed off by Drift, had an absolute beast of a design. And talking about characters which never had too much screen time, the next entry is an 86 movie Windcharger. Now this one, to be honest, actually made me chuckle, as if I'm not mistaken, we only ever see him in the movie dead, and I'm hoping that's not going to be Hasbro's excuse for giving us another battle damage version. I would much rather see his more traditional look first time round, but either way, it's still going to be really cool to finally see him receive an update. And continuing on with the 86 movie, the next entry will be Sunstreaker. Now I would imagine this will be just the Earthrise version re-released, possibly in the same colours that we recently saw from the Autobots United 5-pack, but if they were to give this guy a complete brand new mold, then honestly even better. Now as for this next listing, brace yourself guys, because this took me by surprise more than anything on this list. Next year we are going to be getting an 86 movie Deluxe class Kranix. Now I never thought they would make this guy, especially as I don't believe 1, he ever transformed in the film, and 2, he was pretty much just used as Sharkticon bait. But after doing some research, there is actually an unused concept that does exist for his alt mode, and I'm gonna be entirely honest guys, I actually really like the design, so at the very least it will make for an incredibly interesting figure. There will also be an 86 movie cliff jumper. Now this really comes to the surprise of no one, as of course Hasbro is gonna get as much mileage as possible from the 86 movie Bumblebee, but to be fair, I do think this guy definitely needed an update. The Earthrise version, whilst was good for its time, unfortunately did parts form and wasn't completely accurate to how he did look on the show. Then finally, rounding off these deluxes with two Transformers 1 listings, the first being of Thundercracker. Now this will more than likely be a repaint of Starscream, which if I'm not mistaken, we are set to see released this year and in the next wave of Studio Series. Honestly, judging by how solid some of the figures have so far been from this movie, I'm expecting this also to be incredibly good. And then last, but by no means least, we have a listing for a character which I've wanted ever since watching the movie, Arachnid. She was fantastic, one of the biggest highlights for myself, although released as a deluxe class. To be completely honest, I think a Voyager would have been slightly more fitting for her design. She was a pretty big character in the movie, and then maybe if she was a Voyager, she could have included the double-sided blade for Sentinel Prime, but still really awesome to see her get a release nonetheless, and she will make for a great companion piece to stack up against Elita 1. Now, turning things up a notch by jumping into the Voyager class listings. To tell the truth, the first two really do go hand in hand with each other. So, the first one is an 86 movie Skywarp, with the second being 86 movie Thundercracker. Now, I am guessing that these will just be individual reissues of the versions that we did see as part of the Earthrise toy line, although part of me still hopes that Hasbro will reapproach Starscream to give us a much better version of the mold. The Earthrise release, to be completely honest, I do think is a little outdated, and if we were to take into account figures such as Ironhide and Optimus Prime, I really do think they can do so much better, which is something that I can't really say as we check out the next listing for an 86 movie Shockwave. I'm guessing that this will maybe be a beefed up version of the Siege release, seeing as that figure is already near perfect, but honestly, who knows? If they do find some way to improve upon that mold, then either way we are definitely in for a treat. And then finally, rounding things off for the Voyagers completely, we have yet another Transformers 1 character, that being Alpha Trion. Again, much like Arachnid, a really cool and very interesting character. I personally loved his design. The mainline deluxe was definitely decent, but unfortunately is just way out of scale now with some of the Studio Series figures. So it will be super cool to see him released, hopefully a little bigger, and without no doubt a lot closer to his look in the film. Now, to round things off for the main line of Studio Series, before we begin to jump into some of the exclusives, we have to discuss Leader Class. So, the first listing would be of an 86 movie Soundwave. Now, this is the one that I personally have been waiting for. I just knew when Hasbro released the Netflix version for the Legacy United toy line that they would be cooking up something even better for the 40th anniversary of the 86 movie. The designers have mentioned multiple times now how if they were to reapproach Soundwave, that they would love for him to at the very least be in scale with Blaster, and it looks like we are going to see exactly that. I'm also hoping that seeing as Core Class has now vanished from retail, that he will also include both Laserbeak and Ravage, and that they too are completely brand new, as let's all face it, the Siege versions are honestly looking kind of rough, especially stacked up alongside the likes of both Frenzy and Rumble. Continuing on the hype of the 86 movie, there will also be a Leader Class Astro Train. Now this one could really go either of two ways, the first one being that it is just a simple repaint of the Transformers Siege version, or is a retool, much like we did recently see from Springer. I just don't see them making an entirely brand new mold, especially as the previous version was already so good. There will also be a repack for the 86 movie Snarl, although it would be so nice if, much like the Legacy Metal Hawk, they tweaked the colours very slightly so that his head and arms in Dino mode were painted in the same metallic gold that we have seen from the rest of the Dinobots. Then finally, rounding things off completely for the Leader Class listings would be Transformers 5 The Last Knight Nemesis Prime. Now I would imagine this to be a slightly darker repaint of the Age of Extinction version, possibly with an unmasked head and maybe the blade that he did use whilst battling against Bumblebee. Now, to round off this video completely, there are 4 more listings which right now are set to be released to coincide with the 40th anniversary of the Transformers 1986 animated movie. The first is Deluxe Class Hound. Now, much like some of the previous listings that we've already discussed, if this does happen to be an individual release of the exact same figure that was a part of the Autobot 5-pack, then this will be incredibly crafty. I personally am hoping for the very least for them to retool some components to really get him as close as possible to the animation model, as the Legacy United version, to be completely honest guys, I just don't think was all that great. The second listing is for Voyager Class Scourge, a great reissue of an incredibly difficult figure to track down. There will also be a Voyager Class Hot Rod, hopefully this time accurately recolored in magenta, much like we did see from the more recent G1 reissue, and then finally a Leader Class Optimus Prime. My guess would be the 86 movie Commander, this time released just without the trailer, and potentially just the Ion Blaster. But I would love to know what you guys think of everything that we've discussed in today's video. Out of all of the listings, which is the one you guys are the most excited for? As always, I want to thank you all so much for watching, and until my next video, I'll see you then. Transform and roll out!